Hey guys, this is Faith Ray and welcome to part 4 in my video series, How to Become a Webcam Model. Today's topic is taxes. For some reason, there's this strange and common misconception within the camming industry that because we don't automatically have taxes deducted from our paychecks, it means we don't have to pay them. This is very, very wrong. Whether you cam as a hobby or a full-time job, any money you make through it is income, and income needs to be taxed. I'd like to preface this video by stating that there's not really a lot I can tell you on this topic, mostly because things vary from location to location so much, but I can give you 3 very solid pieces of advice that will definitely help you when tax season rolls around. The first piece of advice I'm going to give you, and I'll probably give it to you more than once, is to get a local accountant. I can give you questions that you can ask them, but they're the ones that are going to have the answers. The first question you're going to want to ask is, how much will I owe? What you're going to do here is find out what the income tax rates are where you live. That way, you'll know what percentage of each paycheck to put aside so that you can pay your taxes at the end of the year. The reason this is so important to do is so that when it comes time to pay your taxes, the money's already there and you're not going to be scrounging around last minute throwing full paychecks into your taxes in order to get them handled in time. Just like your income tax rates though, what you're going to be able to write off is going to vary drastically based on where you live. I know cam girls who have literally gotten away with writing off the most ridiculous stuff, while there are girls in other places who can't seem to write off anything at all just based on their local tax laws. To give you an example of how this works though, assuming you're going to be able to write certain things off, look at it like this. If I make $1,000 in 1 week and I spend $200 of that on stuff that I'm using specifically for work, whether it be shoes or outfits or, an upgrade on some of my electronic equipment, that means I'm only having to pay taxes on $800 of that $1,000 that I earned. Like I said though, tax write-offs are rocky territory, and until you go through all of your work-related expenses with your accountant, there can't be any guarantee regarding what you can and cannot write off. So, to be safe, whenever I'm calculating how much of each paycheck I'm going to be putting aside to pay my taxes, I don't factor in any work-related expenses. That way, if I say I was planning on writing something off and I found out later that I can't, I still have the money in my account to cover that expense since it's not something I can write off. The important thing is that it's better to save too much and then have money left over than to not save enough and then have to scrounge to pay your taxes once that time of year rolls around. The best way to stay organized and make sure that you're ready with all the information you need when it comes time to figure out what expenses can and cannot be written off is to hold on to your receipts. Keep them in an envelope, put them in chronological order. Just hold on to them. That way, when tax season comes, you can sit down with your accountant, you can go through your list of expenses, and they can tell you what you can and cannot write off. The other important thing about holding on to receipts is that in the event that you ever get audited, you need to have proof of these expenses. I don't know how many times I've said this so far, but there's no guarantee regarding what you can and cannot write off. So I'm going to give you a list of potential tax write-offs, but you have to understand the fact that these are only a possibility and that they won't necessarily apply to everyone. It's still something to keep in mind though. And I'll probably miss a few things, so when I do an FAQ down the road, if anybody can think of anything else that I might have missed, just let me know. So, potential tax write-offs could include sex toys, lingerie, cosmetics, computer equipment, and shipping and handling charges for anything that you purchase for work online. In a slightly separate category, another thing that you might be able to write off is your office space. The important thing to know about this is that it only applies to a space that is exclusively and specifically dedicated to your work. This means that if you're camming out of your bedroom, you cannot write your bedroom off as a work expense. You cannot even write a part of it off. So for me, I live in a 2-bedroom apartment. This room is my office, and then the room next door is my bedroom. And the way that you calculate how much you write off is you take the total square footage of your apartment versus the total amount of rent. You calculate how much you're paying per square foot, and then multiply that by the number of square feet in your office space. Things can get even trickier here, but another thing to consider is expenses that you can partially write off. Examples of these things would be your internet bill, your phone bill, and your hydro bill. The reason these things are considered partial write-offs is because they're expenses that you would have regardless of whether or not you were in the camming industry, but they are expenses that might be higher because of how you're using them for work. For example, having an internet connection at home is a pretty common personal expense. For me personally, I'm paying for a really awesome internet connection though, so that I can enhance everyone's experience within my line of work. And I wouldn't be paying for such a high-end internet connection if I wasn't in this industry. Now, the last big piece of advice that I can give you is related to something I've already mentioned. When I was talking about tax write-offs, I said you should hold on to all of your receipts. Another thing you can do to make things go a lot smoother when it's time to sit down with your accountant and get everything sorted and filed is to keep everything organized throughout the year. So here's a breakdown of what I do. When it comes to anything on paper, so receipts or pay stubs, I keep them in separate envelopes in chronological order. So I have one receipt with statements of my earnings and another with statements of my expenses. For anything that I order online or any payments that I receive online, I make sure to separate them into their own folder in my inbox so that they're all in one place. So every time I order a new outfit for work, the online receipt for that I receive by email goes into its own folder. I personally hold on to all of this stuff more for the sake of having it as proof should I ever need to prove anything, because sitting there and flipping through a whole bunch of receipts when it comes time to file my taxes sounds like a pain in the ass. So to make that easier, what I do is every time I file a receipt or a pay stub or put something into a separate folder in my inbox that pertains to my job, I also write it down in a notebook. When it comes to keeping track of earnings and expenses, there are a few things that I always try to make sure I write down. One thing is the date, so the date that I got paid or the date that I purchased something. I also write down where I got it, if it's a payment. Because I receive payments from multiple sites, this just makes it easier knowing what came from where. And if I made a purchase, I write down what category it would be in. And this is something that your accountant can talk to you about more too. When you're filing your taxes and you're going through your expenses, expenses are separated into different categories. You don't have to know exactly what they are. I just do stuff like makeup and furniture and outfits and toys and so on and so forth. Your accountant can help narrow it down to the exact categories in the paperwork. I also make sure to write down the exact amount that I received whenever I get a paycheck and the exact amount I spent whenever I purchase something for camming. For anyone who's receiving payments in a foreign currency, for example, I'm Canadian and all of my payments are received in American dollars, make sure you write down the amounts in your currency. It makes things a whole lot simpler rather than trying to convert everything when you finally go to file. Just to quickly sum up everything I touched on, the 3 most important things for you to remember are: get an accountant, put aside money for your taxes, keep your shit organized. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you guys found this helpful, and if you have any questions or comments, feel free to let me know. Next video is going to focus on additional forms of revenue such as phone chat and video sales, as well as touching a little bit on self-promotion. Hopefully it doesn't take me this long to make that video. Have a great day, everyone. I'll see you again soon.